So, 10 Momente in der WWE, über die sich am meisten beschwert wurde. Mal sehen, ob er hier die richtigen Fakten nennt. Von Wrestling Flashback? Wrestlelamia, auch geiler Kanal. Boah,
But the
2
wrestling world of
Millionen!
wrestling is the same as it is in any other
Und
medium.
das
The
Intro
fan
gerade war, wo Seth Rollins den Hammer auf The Fiend geschlagen hat und einfach ein Hell in a Cell Match mit Disqualifikation zu Ende ging. Komme ich bis heute nicht
die
drauf
hard
klar,
or
Digga.
otherwise, are gonna complain. It doesn't help then that WWE has continuously unleashed a slog of matches, moments, and angles that have seriously angered its core fan base. Even in 2025, this hasn't ceased, as John Cena's heel turn, a moment so
Okay, mein Gedanke ging direkt zu Jey Uso.
eagerly anticipated for over 2 decades, was handled without the care and attention it truly
Aber
warranted.
das gehört leider auch
But
dazu.
that's just the latest chapter in a lengthy anthology of WWE having historically patronized its audience. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 of the most complained about moments in WWE history. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. Number 10, the Jey Uso experiment.
Ja.
111,000, 89,000, 84,000. No, those aren't WWE's inflated attendance figures for the past 3 WrestleManias. They actually represent the company's 3 most disliked YouTube videos of 2025. The common denominator? Jey Uso.
Was?
The 3 videos in question are Jey winning the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania 41, 1 minute
Das war-
squash over Austin Theory from March of
Boah.
2025, and his recent Battle Royal victory on Raw acted as
Alter, Digga. Was haben die denn da bitte noch weiter? Also nach dem ersten Video muss doch schon klar sein, Digga, das können wir nicht weiterziehen. Und die ziehen es noch weiter bis zum Oktober, Leute. Guck mal, bis zum Oktober haben die es gezogen mit Jey Uso. Krank.
sufficient evidence that WWE's incessant pushing of main event Jey really hasn't worked. He shifts merchandise and
Und Leute haben ihn mit Jeff Hardy verglichen. Digga.
his catchphrase over, but this didn't equate to a consistent spot atop the WWE main event mountain. For those reasons, WWE's decision to light a fire behind him wasn't a terrible idea, but they've absolutely taken it too far. Putting him over in the 2025 Royal Rumble match, last eliminating John Cena what was seen as final Rumble before retiring, was instantly met with skepticism on social media, and his subsequent ride to WrestleMania wasn't exactly without hurdles.
Bruder.
His in-ring work is poor and
Bruder.
certainly isn't the level of his main event counterparts. Number 9, the rise and fall of Zack Ryder.
Oh,
Now, there was a
okay.
genuine feeling of change in the air post TLC 2011, the first scene of which saw the unionization
Hat er
of
gegen
CM
Ziggler
Punk,
gewonnen, glaub ich.
Daniel Bryan and Zack Ryder in the ring. It was a particularly
Digga,
poignant moment
was für
for Ryder, who'd
Champions, ne?
ridden the WWE system for years and was finally seeing the hard work paying off.
Er ist der Erste, der sich mit Social Media bei den Fans overgebracht hat.
That is until he
Mit YouTube-Videos.
realized that only the fans, not Vince McMahon, were behind him. In Vince's mind, their opinion was as useful as a dinosaur skull on his office wall. Ryder hadn't been gifted with a fruitful WWE career that made him a household name, but away from WWE's shambolic television, he used his self-produced YouTube series Z True Long Island Story to get himself over. It worked too until WWE got bored and booked him to drop the United States Championship within weeks, and then
Ja.
had Kane kill him off on
Ja,
the same night
ich
as
erinnere
his
mich.
storyline girlfriend Eve Torres cheated on him
Ich
in front of
erinnere
him
mich.
with supposed babyface John Cena. Fans were pissed, but what could they do? Getting yourself over outside of WWE's corporate bubble was treated as a crime, and thus Ryder didn't do too much else for the next 8 years before he was ultimately canned in 2020. Number 8, John Cena slays the Nexus.
Naja,
No,
ey,
I've never
zu Zack Ryder, er ist wieder da, als Matt Cardona. Mal gucken, was die jetzt mit ihm machen, ja?
operated like that.
Und das hat mir als Kind sehr gefallen, was John Cena mit Nexus gemacht hat. Jetzt als junger Erwachsener zurückschauend drauf sage ich, ey, das war ein Fehler. Aber als Kind hat er mich gerettet, als er Nexus besiegt hat.
Never had creative control. I've always just kind of been reliable, showing up and doing whatever I'm asked. And this is a direct quote taken from John Cena's August 2025 appearance on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and it's complete waffle. Cena, 15 years earlier in August 2010, petitioned to bludgeon the Nexus at SummerSlam, cooling their heated start to WWE. Disposing of Wade Barrett and Justin Gabriel as if they were Barry Horowitz and the Brooklyn Brawler, John was on full Super Cena form this night. He
Ja, Mann.
withstood a prolonged 2-on-1 beatdown, which included a DDT on the concrete floor. But
Oder
Gabriel was
als wenn
able to
nix
evade
wär,
elimination after missing his own 450 splash, while Barrett succumbed to a typically weak Cena-applied STF. That was it for the Nexus. They'd began their descent into WWE irrelevancy. But that wasn't the plan. As told by Heath Slater, the NXT Season 1 rookies were to go over Team Cena
Guck mal, wer hier
until
alles
1 hour
dabei war,
after
ey.
WWE had opened the doors to the Staples Center. Edge and Chris Jericho were the ones that put the whole match together, made it make sense, and it was good. Then Cena didn't like it, is the story I've heard, so we wanted to change it. Edge and Chris went to bat for us. They were all for it, the Nexus winning. Then it got switched and Jericho and Edge were pissed. They were just like, are you kidding? Are you serious? This ain't good for the story. This is just for Cena's ego. That was a damning message sent to WWE developmental hopefuls and crucially to the so-called WWE Universe, their complaints going unanswered as Vince McMahon succeeded in bidding off another solid gold idea. Number 7, here
Ja,
comes
da muss
Charlotte.
ich noch sagen, wie ich mitbekommen habe, Cena soll gesagt haben zu Vince, ey, wir können die Leute nach SummerSlam nicht nach Hause gehen lassen, nachdem die Bösen gewinnen, deswegen müssen die Guten gewinnen. Fürs Gefühl der Fans.
Flair. Now in 2019, WWE had the easiest to sell WrestleMania event since 2001. Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, the man versus the baddest woman on the planet,
Ja, Mann.
the biggest babyface versus the biggest heel. But they ruined it. The insertion of Charlotte Flair wasn't the coup that they thought it would be. Flair, already hated for
Wallah,
not
ohne
being
Sinn.
Becky Lynch, was serenaded by vitriolic hatred when Vince McMahon introduced her as Becky's replacement for Rousey's match. It was the worst possible
Wallah,
solution to a
ohne
problem
Sinn.
that never existed in the
Keiner
first
hatte
place.
Bock da drauf.
It did nothing to assist the WrestleMania build other than fill the void in the weeks Rousey didn't fancy traveling to television. Lynch would ultimately be reinstated as the headline attraction and also win. The fans knew that this was the long-term plan, but it didn't matter. Charlotte was public enemy number 1, not storyline-wise, but in actuality. Here, fans' complaints weren't restricted to hating on Flair's fictional character or on WWE's handling of the situation, but rather they took the form of death threats. This isn't okay,
Digga,
obviously, and those involved should feel embarrassed and ashamed.
Also das
Death
ist aber...
threats.
Habt ihr das gerade gelesen?
Or on WWE's handling of the situation, but rather they
Ihr
took
Bruder ist ja gestorben. Digga, und hier schreibt...
the form of death threats. This isn't okay, obviously, and those involved should feel embarrassed and ashamed. Number 6, Cody Rhodes and the Rubber Chicken. In 2023, WWE had one of the easiest WrestleMania sales ever. Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, the American Nightmare versus the Tribal Chief, the biggest babyface versus the biggest heel. Wait, where have we heard this before? Yep, they ruined it. Cody was hot property at the time of WrestleMania 39. He returned after a 6-month injury in the Royal Rumble match and set his sights on Roman Reigns, setting out to what had to be the unattainable for Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, John Cena, Daniel Bryan, and countless others. If only. Roman pinned Cody following an unwanted Solo Sikoa interruption. Describing the reaction as an opera of silence would be a cliche gone too far.
Aber im Nachhinein war
The
das voll die
negative
gute
response in the
Entscheidung,
SoFi
also...
Stadium was legitimately deafening, loud enough to drown out Reigns' victorious theme music. WWE followed it up with a Brock Lesnar heel turn on Cody Rhodes and a Roman Reigns title defense versus a yet to break
das war
out Jey
scheiße.
Uso was
Die
the
mit
final
Jey
kick in
Uso
the teeth.
war noch
Still,
okay,
at least Cody
aber
got
die
a
Fehde
free
mit
rubber
Brock hat mir
chicken
nicht
out of it.
gefallen.
Number 5, the boss
mir
endorses
nicht
the
gefallen.
rattlesnake. This is what Stone Cold Steve Austin had to say regarding his infamous heel turn at WrestleMania 17 on Chris Jericho's Talk is Jericho podcast. Worst call I've ever made other than refusing to job to Brock Lesnar in Atlanta. But you know, that was my idea. Well,
Okay, er ist geheelturned, er ist mit Vince McMahon auf eine Seite und er ist auch, also vielleicht wissen das einige nicht, er sollte bei einer Random Raw-Ausgabe gegen einen neuen Brock Lesnar 2002 einfach verlieren und das hat er nicht gemacht und ich glaube, er ist dann sogar getrennte Wege mit der Firma gegangen zu der Zeit.
clearly the time wasn't right for me to turn. It was like everybody loved John Wayne for what he stood for, and so he did not ever have to be a bad guy in his movies. He never was. People didn't want to hate me. The Texas Rattlesnake wasn't alone in his complaints. Fans absolutely hated it too. It was impossible not to hate it. It was always a risk to take a megastar of this caliber and then turn them the opposite way. While it can pay off, with Hulk Hogan in WCW being a prime example, this didn't. Austin's turn played out before a bewildered and lifeless Texan audience who couldn't get their heads around the fact that Austin was now a heel. They were eerily silent when Vince McMahon first handed Austin, his arch-rival for 4 years, the steel chair that he would use to beat The Rock within an inch of his life.
Stone Colds Karriere, so wie man sie kennt, ging einfach auch nur 6 Jahre, ne?
Why even
Und
bother?
er ist in der
Austin was
GOAT-Debatte
done as a
drin.
full-timer
Also
within
stellt
2
euch da
years
mal
of
noch
his
5 Jahre mehr
career-derailing
vor.
heel turn. Yes, injuries were the primary reason, but he was mentally finished the minute his hand shook Vince's. And before the 2014 Royal Rumble
Ja,
match,
Daniel Bryan,
so
ne?
aware was Vince McMahon that Daniel Bryan was the desired winner of the Royal Rumble match in 2014, he opted to remove any possibility of having Batista, his desired winner, be booed in favor of Bryan, that he refrained from having the American Dragon enter the 30-man pool at all. By the time the buzzer sounded for number 30 and Rey Mysterio ran out, the live crowd turned the match off, filling the arena with chants for Bryan. Now the problem with this is that it wasn't the same booking strategy Vince later used in 2019 to build Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey's WrestleMania showdown. Daniel Bryan legitimately wasn't going to main event WrestleMania. He was going to the mid-card and challenging Sheamus for the US title.
Digga.
Bryan ultimately won the big one at WrestleMania 30 after weeks of vocalized fan backlash, toppling a now heel Batista and defending champion Randy Orton in a triple threat masquerading as a handicap match, and Vince acted as if this was his grand plan all along. And if it wasn't for the loud fan vocalization of their immense displeasure, Bryan would have been jobbing to Sheamus on the grandest stage, and we would have never got this moment. Number 3, the 2015 Royal Rumble match. It didn't get any
Noch
better
schlimmer.
in 2015. To summarize, Daniel Bryan was chucked out of the Royal Rumble match after just 10 minutes.
Ja,
The
Mann.
dilapidated Big Show and Kane
Digga.
dumped all the favorites out, including Dean
Guck mal,
Ambrose,
wie
Bray
die auch,
Wyatt,
guck
Dolph
mal, wie
Ziggler,
die auch
and even
rausschmeißen, wie
Ryback out
solche
of the
Säcke
match.
einfach.
And Roman Reigns in a presentation
Das war
designed
der
to get him over
schl-
significantly in a
der-
market not known for its goodwill
zweitschlechteste Royal
gesture,
Rumble, den ich je
Philadelphia
gesehen
again,
habe,
with
echt.
the match of the authorities towering
Ich glaube, der
henchmen in
schlechteste
what is
kommt
still
hier nach
the worst
sogar.
Royal Rumble Final 3 to date. But
Ja,
not
Mann.
even an appearance from
Nicht
The
mal
Rock
The
could
Rock
prevent
konnte das Ding retten.
cancel WWE Network
Nicht mal
from
The Rock
trending
konnte
worldwide.
das Ding da
He
noch
knew it
retten.
too, as a post-match social media
Rusev
interview
war so ein
alongside
Heel und
Reigns
man
displayed
wollte
The
einfach,
Rock's
dass er
true colours.
gewinnt
He
am
wanted to come
Ende.
in, make the save, and be the hero WWE wanted Roman to be. But Philadelphia wanted no part in it. WWE really must have been grateful that a supposedly freak snowstorm prohibited the following evening's Monday Night
Ja,
Raw
Mann.
from being broadcast,
Ich erinnere mich so
saving
gut
its
daran.
face following one of the worst Royal Rumble matches of all time. Number 2, hashtag We Want Cody. And in hindsight, this was a blinding piece of business for WWE. It delivered The Rock's first feature-length in-ring outing
Ja,
since
wäre
2013,
scheiße, wenn The
a
Rock
fiercely
statt
brilliant
Cody
angle
dabei
between
wäre.
him and Cody Rhodes,
Platz
the first
2 ist
instance
schon
of an
sehr
overbooked headline
hochgegriffen.
attraction, seeing the plunder-focused story benefiting,
Und
not
es hat
derailing
auch
the
immer
match.
sehr, sehr gut
At the time,
geendet am
though,
Ende des
it was
Tages. Ne?
embarrassingly bad. At the 2024 Rumble, Cody Rhodes, who had dragged WWE out of its murky depths and had just won his second Rumble match, pointed directly at Roman Reigns, his assumed WrestleMania 40 foe. Except he wasn't. Seth Rollins was. Roman, meanwhile, was on a track
Das,
to defend
hätten die
his
es wirklich
4-year
so gemacht,
WWE
dann wäre ich auch
title
mit
reign
Platz 2
against The Rock,
zufrieden, ja.
ditching the obvious
Haben die
year-long
zum
story
Glück
to
aber
deliver
nicht.
the match that had been brewing since 2015.
WrestleMania
Hashtag
40
We
war
Want
schon
Cody
krank,
trended
ne?
for days on social media, an operation which reached non-wrestling circles, and indeed one which resulted in WWE pivoting. A gripping documentary was released in the aftermath of the saga, during which WWE smartly told a story as it actually was. In essence, WWE caved to the pressure. For someone who bangs on about trusting the process, Paul Triple H Levesque hates trusting the process. This was never as evident as it was in February 2024. And number 1, this random Divas match.
Okay, Moment. Ich sag mal so, für mich der schlechteste Royal Rumble, okay, ich sag auch 2015, aber von 2026 bis 2016, in den letzten 10 Jahren war der schlechteste und das ist der zweitschlechteste überhaupt 2022, wo Brock Lesnar gewonnen hat, wo das Ding Shane McMahon gebuckt hat und weil es so schlecht war, Vince McMahon seinen eigenen Sohn aus der Firma gefeuert hat. Das ist so ein scheiß Royal Rumble gewesen. Richtige Grütze, wirklich.
Paige and Emma versus the Bella Twins. That doesn't read as a particularly enthralling tag team match, and it really wasn't. Plastered onto Raw's 23rd February 2015 episode, the bout, which lasted all of 30 seconds, presented its 4 participants as total losers. How that is accomplished in such a period of time is anyone's guess, but WWE managed it. The finish saw Emma take the pin, obviously as she awkwardly walked into a Bella Buster as if it was on a to-do list of the day. It was a terribly produced match that unknowingly transcended a change of the guard for WWE history. Hashtag Give Divas a Chance was the online trend, but this was more than a trend. It was a movement, earnestly changed everything for female wrestlers in WWE. Without this match, there would have been no Women's Tag Team Championships, no Women's Intercontinental or US Championships,
Hab ich gar nicht so
no Women's
mitbekommen.
Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, Elimination Chamber, or Hell in a Cell matches, and certainly no Women's WrestleMania main event. Fans complained, and for once, WWE actually made a difference, even if
Ja, krass, okay. 9 von 10 Momenten kannte ich.